Hello and welcome to the Queer and Clear podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Rollins, and this is a series of interviews where we talk to people about their sexuality and their spirituality and where the two meet.
Hola.
Hola. Danny Redbard, you have a beautiful woman as your thumbnail picture.
Yeah, hang on one sec.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's confusing, that. It even used to call me Nikita something. I was like, I'm logged in. I don't understand why this other human has taken over my shit.
Truly gender fluid, I feel.
It's funny. That is very
Avatar. It's just morphing now. Just straight up shape shifting. You were in my dream last night and we were in a very like an alternate reality, like a futuristic reality, and we were I don't know, it was very like future community vibes, but we were trying to figure out some futuristic shower situation. It was vaguely erotic.
I love your vague eroticism.
The goal was very like, it was very strange. You know, when there's like it's erotic, but actually your focus is like, we really need to get that like flower thing for the thing. You're on a mission.
Yeah.
But you're just casually having a shower with your friend in the middle of the dream.
Yeah. Casual shower in the middle. Actually had another friend message me, voice note me this morning saying, "You were in my dream last night again, Danny." And I get this regularly, and I'm like, "Oh, I love dream stuff."
I feel like this is very much a role in people's dreams. You're like the accomplice, but also kind of the I guess like the guide, or what is it? It's like a classic character in a kind of hero's journey where the person comes in and they're like, hey, this is the path you need to take. And I can't remember what you call that person.
Well, the wizard on the side of the road.
There we go. That's you. But also you're kind of the accomplice. You're like the friend comes along and we achieve our mission together.
I can certainly play that role. I love that role.
Yeah, we go on a quest. I feel like you and I go on quests all the time.
I feel like every conversation we have, Catherine, is a quest.
Exactly. I feel like we should just get into this because this is already good stuff. So hi, welcome, Danny. Please tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into some questions.
Yeah, great. So I'm Danny Redbard. I facilitate shadow work and emotional patterns and clear emotional blocks of people. I sit in circles twice a week, on Tuesday nights with men, on Thursday nights with all genders. So I facilitate emotional patterns to no longer play out in people's lives. I like calling myself an emotion guide, like a spirit guide, but for the human body. And so in that, I do a lot of work in initiating men or like boys into their manhood. That's been massive work for me. And just initiating people through rites of passage into their adulthood in general, because I feel like we do lack that in our society, and so it's a big thing that I love to do.
Beautiful. I just realized maybe we should take a breath together. I meant to do this beforehand, but it doesn't matter. Just sort of dropping in. So if you want to close your eyes for a second, and we can just take a breath in and a breath out. And just sinking into this moment together, sharing our lives with one another like we like to do. So on a personal level, Danny and I have been friends for, I think, a couple of years now, almost. And we were lovers briefly, which is a joyful time. He wrote me some love letters. I hope that's okay to share. Very beautiful, poetic love letters. I feel like he has one of the purest hearts I've ever met, and is such a privilege to know and to speak with and share life with. I often call you with like my girl conundrums. I'm like, Danny, what am I doing? And he's very skilled at assisting me in many emotional quests. I was just saying to him before we started this conversation, that he was in my dream last night, and we were very much on a mission in a futuristic reality, but also having a shower together. Yeah. So yeah. love this human. So I'd love to hear, I feel like maybe we start a bit more on the sexuality front. I'd love to hear a bit about like your journey with your sexual identity, if you identify, and really anything that you feel like you want to share on that.
Great. Ah, where to begin? I've always, if I go back really young, I grew up with a lot of cousins, and on my dad's side of the family, they were mainly all boys and like my age or older, predominantly older. And on mum's side of the family, they were mainly all girls and predominantly younger or my age. And it's like I had these two different faces or these two different personalities for when I'm hanging out with my boy cousins or when I'm hanging out with my girl cousins. And I definitely felt like I communicated better or got along better or flowed better, enjoyed myself more when I was hanging out with the girls. And that has been a resonance throughout my life. Like I've always had guy mates and been able to, I remember playing like football in high school and literally only playing football because like if I wasn't a bloke playing football, like I didn't spend time with my mates. It's like we had training twice a week. Like we had to be on field. It's like what else am I gonna do? Like sit on the sideline with the girls and watch the blokes play? Like it's just like where I grew up out in Tamworth, I had to toe the line a lot and be that boy that's becoming a man. And that was a shape that I didn't exactly fit quite perfectly. So my journey with gender is still going for sure. My journey with sexuality is ever evolving because I don't, you and I have, actually, of course, I think of you as I think of this line, but I like telling people that we're all hermaphrodite dragons.
Yeah.
You know that we get that from like the Field and from the Haydn crew. And it's like, but the more that I delve into me and witnessing my patterns and getting in connection with more my essence, that feels true. I like visualizing myself as this random fairy fawn that's not male, not female. Like that's what every time I tap into myself, that's what's there. So it's fun being in this man body in this lifetime for sure. I really enjoy having a cock and all that. That's cool. I feel like those hormones are a big part of my life. Cool. But also I know that I walk the path of the feminine. I walk the path of the woman, and I always have. And if we went back a few hundred years in and whatever culture we were, to what indigenous lands of the world, where it was much more easily recognized that there are more than two genders, I know that I would be one of those humans that simultaneously does the rites of passage as a woman and gets to be in the sacred women's business as well as be in the sacred men's business, because I don't really have a title that I identify, but I know that that's the path that I walk.
I was going to say, do you have pronouns that you prefer people use with you?
I'm really easy with the he, him.
Yeah. Beautiful. And that sort of leads us into, I feel, the sacred women's business, sacred man's business. Okay. What has been your kind of background in your spirituality, and what's also like your current spiritual practice?
My spirituality. I like feeling as we speak in the spiral, as you and I are both spiral practitioners, that we have 5 bodies We have the physical body, we have the emotional body. The emotional body is the main one that I work with and I help people with. We also have the mental body, and I feel like in our spiritual community, we make the mental body and our minds wrong a lot. Like, oh, he's in his mind. Like, there's something wrong with that. It's like, my mind is infinitely expansive and infinitely layered, whether it's inward or outward and connected to yours. So let's really love our mind for its capacity. We've got the energetic body that doesn't end where my skin ends, doesn't end where my brain ends. We've got the spirit body that's simultaneously playing out all potential realities ahead of me. Simultaneously, that little divine child still that like came here to this earth with intention, and is that little wounded child as well at times, and that adaptive child, and is all the archetypes within me. So tapping in and practicing them, knowing that foods, my medicine, the plants are here to help me, knowing that there's spirit in everything. Like I was in a drumming circle last night, and even before I'll like hand my flute to someone who will like ask whether they can play it, like I'll let my flute know, I'll speak to my flute, or like I warn my drum that it's going to be handed around like a little, like it's going to be a little polyamorous bloody drum that
night. What does your drum think about that?
It's very patient with me, like all my instruments are, because I'm just like, just throw them around and just have a time. And so that's a lot of fun for me. And the more that I connect to the spirit of my instruments, or the more that I speak to the spirit of things, like I speak to my phone a lot, right? Like if I'm going to put my phone on the ground, I'm like, I let it know because it's like I've had a lot of trouble with technology in general. And I used to really have this aversion, be like, no, I need to be away from my phone, I need to be out in nature, blah, 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 all that kind of rhetoric. And I'm like, hang on, what's the separation that I'm creating between my phone and a tree? Like, can I really, like, am I perceiving this tree as more spiritual than my phone? My phone is a beautiful tool that I'm using right now to connect with you, Catherine. It's like you and I get to have these beautiful conversations, and it's like such a beautiful means to me. So it's like, I appreciate the spirit in my phone. So what is my journey with spirituality? Massive.
It's a small question, no big deal.
And if I go back, there's a big part here around my upbringing, that on Dad's side of the family, we're Koori, Kamilaroi, Aboriginal, and I went to a predominantly Indigenous primary school where we learned the Dreamtime stories, or a fair few, and learned a lot of dances and a lot of culture growing up. And I assumed that was everyone's upbringing, and then it really wasn't. And then since I've moved to the coast, there's a big separation between, because it's so heavily populated here, with tourists and so much stuff going on, like Brisbane, Gold Coast, Byron region. And there seems to be a big separation between the local mobs and the humans all living here and moving here. And so like I've got a massive piece on protocol, doing things the old ways, connecting to the aunts and uncles, connecting to the local mob, being in touch with the yarns that need to be told and need to be spun about the land that we're specifically living on. Because spirituality to me has to be grounded, has to walk hand in hand with the protocol of the land. And so that's a massive piece for me, grounding that stuff, being aware of it. And it's coming back. The more I bring focus to that, the more that I realize that the yarns are ready to be told and the protocols are ready to be shared, and things that have been kept secret for a couple of 100 years are now being shared, because there's no turning back at this stage. So how can we all walk hand in hand?
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And it makes me kind of think about like parts of my work where I'm really tuning into the body, and you could argue that the land and the body kind of have, you know, a similar quality. And then how does spirituality, you know, move and work with the body? So I love that, that idea that our spirituality should be, how did you phrase it? In harmony with, or in relationship with the land? It really makes a lot of sense to me.
100%.
Yeah. And I know also you have had I mean, I'm just assuming, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you've done like a lot of tantric work and things like that.
Yeah, I do. It's funny, Catherine, because I forget it almost a little bit. You know, I can feel you. It's like you've reminded me a couple of times. We're steering this towards sexuality, and I'm like, oh yeah, because it's almost something that I feel like it's embodied on a level now that I don't need to speak about it all the time, and it's something that I help a lot of men, especially with sexual shame and that kind of thing, and like and being in our essence of both masculine and feminine, and that's fun for me. But it's like something to delve into, comprehend on a bodily level, and then move on from. In some ways, you know how you and I speak about the light and dark, and the feminine and masculine, those poles. Like, oh, my light masculine right now is quite overt. Oh, I need to move into my dark feminine. It's like I really got into that for a time, really taught that, still teach that. Part of me is just like really over it. And so, yeah, let's delve into sexuality. Let's crack that.
You don't have to. We don't have to go there. I'm happy for this to be whatever feels truest for you. I feel like in some ways, like you and I were having a conversation a little while ago about moving on, or like what you just said about having integrated this stuff, or the tantric ideas, having like embodied them and then moved on. I feel like, you know, you and I were talking about even moving on from light and dark as concepts, and just kind of, I love that about the way that we converse, and it's like we're always kind of innovating and moving on in a way. And I think that's really partly what inspired this podcast, was to wanting to like, help that progression. So I guess what I'm curious about is like maybe more your journey of that, like how your journey with starting maybe with the basic tantric principles, and then like getting to where you are now, and I guess where you see it being now, I'm interested in.
Yeah, cool. There's a level of where I am now. So I'm speaking for now. All of a sudden, I know you've asked about journey. Let's see if we can get there. Where I am now. There's a level of discipline that I'm bringing in now in observing my patterns and allowing my willpower to be stronger than my patterns. So there's a fierce determination in me around. So one of the first, okay, cool. Here's the yarn. Here's a story. Some of the first tantric stuff that I was looking into was around our chi energy, and how us men lose some of our energy via ejaculation. And so there was a big movement for a while, and it's still alive in a lot of men, of like, ejaculating makes us lose our chi energy. So sublimating this energy, allowing it to spread around the body. Like, what are all these words? What does this mean? What, like, how do we do it? Right, I hold back my ejaculation. And I remember the first time I had sex with the intention of not ejaculating. And as my cock entered the pussy, I was like, oh my God, I was so present to every minute movement that it felt like I was losing my virginity again. And I realized that up until that point, I'd been having sex from this state of point A to point B, and I wasn't fully present before that. I had this like, I used to have these goals of get her to come, then I can come, then we can ejaculate. And you can see how all of that is ahead of me rather than in this moment right now. All of a sudden we have sex without this goal of orgasm or ejaculation, and I'm just fully present in my body, feeling sensations that I hadn't in I don't know how many years. And that was amazing to me and groundbreaking to me. And then I bloody you know, shortly after I ejaculated, and I was like, oh, like kicking myself and like down and out, like mad at myself for ejaculating. No, I wasn't meant to ejaculate, and that's something that any men listening to this thing, like, I'm sublimating, I'm learning to hold back my ejaculation. Let's not make it wrong anytime we do ejaculate.
Yeah.
Seriously, like, enjoy the orgasm. Like, the chi comes back. Like, energy is infinite. We're fine. You know, like, enjoy the orgasm. Don't sweat. It comes in cycles. So enjoy it. Women lose their chi energy, ching energy via the period, right? Via the menstrual cycle, the moon cycle, releasing of the blood. We can see that it releases nutrients and blood, so thus it releases other things the body needs to recuperate, so it's going to take energy. Same with our ejaculation. So we lose some of the ejaculation, the body goes, oh, we need more of that protein, more of those things, so it's like, got to do some work, you know, so that's the energy that we lose on a science level. So where to from there? Now I observe in myself, I still observe myself in these patterns of being like, of self-pleasuring and masturbating. And if I haven't looked at pornography in a long while, I'll like indulge in pornography. And then I've just observed that in myself since being more alone, like having a lot of alone time this year. And I love having alone time, but I'm observing that in myself and going, no, see, that's a slippery slope for me. The more that I indulge in these things, I'm like, it makes me want to indulge more. Like the urge is there to indulge more. And so the level of discipline I'm bringing in at the moment is feeling really good. Like it just is. So there is a level of willpower, and I can do it, that I have to bring into my life. There's a balance in it, because a few years ago when I was first learning to hold back my ejaculation, it was from this like forced willpower place, and that wasn't great either. And then I swung the pendulum back to being okay, and now I'm finding the balance between discipline and flow.
Beautiful.
That answer any question?
I love it. It's so fun for me, like feeling and hearing you, and like also not just hearing the words, but really feeling the energy cycling through your body as you're like moving around and also telling the story. And I'm like almost like listening, yes, and also just like feeling this sort of like circling and yeah, almost feeling the what feels like the cycles or the cogs moving, the motor running. It's I like it.
I'm glad you can get on board with my flowing river energy.
Yeah, I'm a fan. And in terms of, I know you said your sexuality is ever evolving. How do you identify as a particular sexuality? You know, like heterosexual, bisexual, anything like that?
Curious. I've always liked pansexual, because I really enjoy the word pan for a start.
I think we know why.
Pan. I identify as pan.
The god Pan, everyone.
Yeah.
Can you tell the people, in case they don't know who Pan is?
Okay, cool. So Pan is known as either a faun or a satyr, and so he had these goat legs. Oh yeah, that's a great story. So he's got these goat legs, and he used to chase around the sexy little river nymphs, and we used to like catch them and pin them down and fuck them. And so it's like this it seems like this dark masculine energy these days, because it is penetrative, and in our world around consent, there's levels of consent that like I believe that a lot of verbal consent on a lot of levels is bullshit, right? Because I don't think, like, if verbal consent, if Catherine consented to me taking her home from a club, and she says, yeah, I want to have sex, and then all of a sudden an hour later we're in bed together, and energetically Catherine's body is like saying a no, but she said yes to me verbally like an hour ago, then like where's the line drawn on that? To me, that's still like, if her body's saying no to me, if her energy's saying no, if she's like that's a more blatant no than any yes that's been given.
Yeah.
On the other side of the same coin, there's a level of this pan energy, this ability to take and actually like be in that embodiment of taking, that creates a safe place to surrender that is lacking in our society at the moment. So there's going to be more pan energy in the future with consent. And if this is triggering for anyone listening, amazing. Absolutely amazing. That's the work. And anyway, a quick part in that is that he was a Greek god and Roman, like that Mediterranean region. And when Christianity swept through that region, because sex was seen as a sin, the devil, Satan, started being depicted with goat legs. So Pan has these little goat legs. So that's something that's in our field to this day.
Yeah.
That Satan is depicted with goat legs, and sometimes when people see images of Pan, like the Greek god, they assume that it's Satan, and it is not.
I never made that connection, but that makes a lot of sense. I always wondered why Satan was depicted with goat legs. I was like, at what point did this happen? But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And funnily enough, I've also had at times, once someone sent me an image of Pan and the ladies and was like, it's you. I was like, which one's me? And they were like, Pan. I was like, oh, I see. So Danny and I played together. I think the first time we met, my main memory of when we met was us we were at a spiral practitioner training, and you were being trained and I was assisting, and there was some kind of dance situation, I think, and we both were just like in the space. And I remember, I think I went up to you and I was like, I think I said you were like a dog, a puppy. And then I think you picked me up or something, and anyway, that was it.
I can see your subtle like seductress in that, just being like, I'm just gonna plant this seed here and just see what takes fruit. Like, I know what you're like with that energy.
Totally.
Like that's your little darkness, Catherine. That's so funny. Like,
sprinkling of the seeds. And you're out there with your flute.
Yeah, but I was avoiding sexual energy in that way. That was such a deep emotional container for me that week. And because I'm one of I was one of 6 men in a container of 60-ish, right? Out of everyone that's like, oh, I'm going to get out of this wind. Out of everyone that's like 6 men in a container of like 60 women. And I'm one of like 2 men that's sexually available. Like, the energy that gets, like, the magnetism that's there all of a sudden in the space where women just go boom, like it's like this like magnetism that I feel my cock like point at women all of a sudden, and I'm like, I need to fucking concentrate on something other than like sexually taking a woman right now. Like cock, calm down, right? I was really like avoiding anything, and you were under a contract that you couldn't get with any of the participants, so you were in this naughty energy of planting a seed and just walking away from it like, no, I'm being innocent. And so I felt it all. And see that you hear me explaining all that. That's a lot of how I walk the path of the feminine as well. That I can comprehend this on all of the knowing level from my body, rather than just what the words are said in the moment. Catherine goes, oh, you're like a doggo, but I can feel all the energy I can feel like that in, and simultaneously that step away, right? And because I can feel that, like that, if anyone's listening, that is from the place in me that feminine other realms communication space.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot to jam on there, but I want to bring it back to queerness. Danny, do you consider yourself queer?
Yes. I love the queer community. I have queer lovers. I think a lot of the reason, I think it was a big thing for me to accept in the last couple of years that it's like, oh, of course I'm queer. I have queer lovers. I've got queer lovers of both genders. Like, okay, Dan, it's about time. Like,
you're like, wait, the pieces of the puzzle are adding up.
Yeah, it's like, oh, because you're queer, you've got male-bodied lovers and female-bodied lovers. Oh, okay. It's that took me a while to actually get, and it's like, of course, I'm in this space. Like, it's silly how long that took me to actually observe and claim. Yeah.
I find that really fascinating because I would say, as a generalization, that most male-bodied people would see that being a pretty big deal, like having a male-bodied lover, for example. And they wouldn't, I mean, I'd say most men, I'm just saying, probably most men are like, wouldn't have that as an afterthought. They'd be more like, oh my God, if I sleep with this man, that makes me gay or queer or whatever. Can you speak to that?
Yeah,
your experience of that?
Yeah, I really guess you're right. I guess there's even pieces dropping in for me at the moment, just observing that part of it. It's like I get STI checks quite regularly, sexual health checks, and there is that little box that goes, "Are you a man that has sex with other men?" I just tick it, like, yeah,
not a big deal.
Like, definitely, it happens. Like, I love them, and I love the humans around me, and of course they're all lovers, and yeah, some of them are in male bodies, so it's this curious thing. Like, some of it's still even landing for me. I think a lot of it does come down to this emotion work. Like you and I both know that the more we do these clearings and these emotional blocks, these emotional patterns, and the dogma is a massive one. The rules in our brain that aren't out. Yeah. That, like, potentially your parents said to you, Catherine, when you were young, oh, you've got to make sure that you, like, oh, Catherine's going to marry a good little Christian boy that goes to church, right? And like young Catherine takes on that belief on a subtle level, and all of a sudden you're in your 20s/30s, and you can't even see people that you can't even see potential lovers in front of you that have tattoos and don't go to church and are atheists or whatnot. And it's like, on a really subtle level, it's like, after all this emotional clearing work, it's like, oh, why aren't I seeing those humans? Oh, because there's this dogma in my mind, or like other people's beliefs, other people's rules that aren't even mine. So all this emotion work brings us back to more about essence. And so, yeah, it is obvious to me that I'm going to have lovers of all shapes and sizes, and different cultures is a massive piece as well. I think the cultural piece is a massive one for me. That's like, culture's almost a bigger deal to me than gender. And that's something that's in my reality, especially this year. I'm like, I want someone who comprehends and can speak to me on these levels and understands that I'm speaking to them on other telepathic levels rather than just the words coming out of our mouth, and that we all grow up in separate cultures. And I'm very open and available to other cultures and learning other people's cultures and all the subtleties and nuances in that. So that's a bigger deal to me and takes up more of my energy to comprehend in my lovers than the fact that they've got a cock or a pussy. Like, that's quite secondary. So yeah, I love that. That's fun.
And in terms of and what role would you say that your kind of cultural upbringing had in your queer journey and development?
Depression, for sure. Definitely. Yeah, I had a fight with Dad at the end. Dad tried to disown me at the end of last year, in a drunken, angry way, because one of the cousins had screenshotted one of the videos I was in. Tyron Mowbray, the shameless sex god, was staying at my house. He does a live video with me called Gay, Straight or Bi, right? We talk.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
I get, like, one of my cousins sees it, sends a screenshot to my bloody dad who doesn't have the internet, you know what I mean, doesn't comprehend this stuff. Dad is quite illiterate, actually, in all honesty. Great bloke from Mount Toggerbrow way, didn't do much schooling. He doesn't have the comprehension for that levels of, is my son gay, is he, but he wouldn't understand the word pan. Like, it's not something to broach with him other than I'm just going to love him in the state that he's in. And I know that if I show up in that love and acceptance of myself, he can love and accept me. If I'm in shame or denial or feeling a lot of guilt around it, then he will feel those emotions on a subtle level and not accept me. So there's big work for me to do in all that, in holding my center and certainty that I get to be who I am in my essence and be loved in it by my family, regardless of what their cultural upbringings are. So I went to, like, my time in high school, like, and growing up in Tamworth, like, being called gay was like the worst thing to be called. Yeah. Like, oh, you're fucking gay, you're a fucking faggot, that kind of thing. It was like, I was more flamboyant than most of my cousins, that's for sure. Well, all of my cousins really, no, that's just flat out across the board, I can just say that. But like, that wasn't from a state of, oh, I need to show people that I'm some kind of queer. That wasn't even crossing my mind. It's just, this is how I want to express myself. It's like, can I love myself and how I want to express myself? So to your question, like cultural upbringing, to everyone listening, we all have a culture that we're brought up in. So knowing what our cultures are individually, and no one can tell you what your culture is. No one can tell you what your culture is. Your culture is incredibly individual to you. Now, it can be linked to family, like obviously linked to like our ecology, like what's around us, our ecosystem around us, like the humans that we're constantly interacting with. But I can have a different culture than my little brother, for instance. We can grow up in the same house. Like, my little brother's in the army now. He's being brought up. He's still being brought up. We're still being brought up. He's in a different culture than I am, because I'm in this serious little tantric, shamanic, medicine man, medicine woman, medicine person, like realms of emotional clearing and spirit. And my little brother is in a culture of army and drinking and whatnot. So like, I don't even have the same culture as my own little brother, who's a year and a bit younger than me. You know what I'm saying? So like, everyone accepts your own culture. Write down what you feel like your culture is and know that it may change. And what's the culture that I got brought up in? Yeah, for sure. I got brought up in beautiful ways out in the country, but it was in a lot of ways quite suppressive. And now through all this work, I'm realizing that that's not me. I'm not meant to suppress myself. I don't have to suppress myself. And that me, someone who grew up in such a suppressed state, to be able to be expressive in all of me, in all of my essence, is a game changer for my ecosystem. There's people watching, getting pieces, being like from afar. People lurk our stuff, Catherine. That's the funniest thing. I know that
Lurkers.
you would get messages as well, like that, from people that have never liked anything, never commented on anything, barely even know that you're friends, and they've been following us for years and years and years, being like, oh my God, you have no idea how you changed my life. Like, whew, okay, this is why I put it out there. Like, this is why I put it out there, even though sometimes Dad's going to disown me. You know, like, it's important.
Yeah. Beautiful. I'm like, how did you get from, homophobic, it's extreme, but homophobic Tamworth to didn't even notice that I was queer? What? You're an enigma, Danny Redbard.
How. I think, right, it's like step-by-step accidental process, so that's for sure. When there's a lot of beautiful women in the space, right, it's like tame something from, if it was me and a bunch of blokes in a room, it'd feel really blokey to me, but it's like, of course I've got sexual partners that are in male bodies. We're around all these beautiful women. That's a sexual. So, like you're saying, like about like us showering in your dream. It's like, of course I'm going to shower. Like I've showered with mates for years. You know, it's like it's not a thing. We're just comfortable.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning for everyone listening and watching this that I think that, let's say, the subculture that you and I exist in together is very liberal in so many ways. And part of our culture is moving through conditioning, releasing conditioning, opening to experience. And if we go on the tantric route, it's like we're going fully in. We want to embody this identity or this other version, whatever. We're exploring identity and experience and sexuality and relationship all together in these different, what we call containers, like how to even explain this, events that we go to. And so for us, it's not weird that we would, you know, say all be naked together in a room, for starters. That's like the beginnings of it. Naked in a room together, showering with your friend, having a bath with your friend, like that sort of stuff, I would say in our little subculture is pretty normal. Yeah.
One of my favorite things. I just like pictured having a bath with a friend. I'm like, I need to have more baths with friends.
Yeah, I'd love to have a bath with a friend. Yeah, and like, you know, we've had lovers and then swapped lovers. That feels way too intentional. We're just like had the same lovers. We've, you know, there's a lot of fluidity is my point, and I love that about us and our friends.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the different parts of us that get to play out in the different dynamics. That's the thing. That's a lot of what you and I speak about. Hey, it's like who like Catherine, if you lived up here and you and I were in a closer relating dynamic, the part of you that would relate to me, or like the operation of you and I going to the farmers market together, or like living together under the same roof, would look very different to if you were with one of your female-bodied lovers. And it's like, what's playing out there? What parts of us are playing out, and how can we express all of ourselves? How can we live a life where Catherine gets to express all the different corners of herself? Catherine doesn't want to just live with one female-bodied partner and have to be this like this kind of man of the house in some energies. Like Catherine's very capable of that, run that energy at times, but also wants to be the woman of the house, like be like you know, go the opposite end of the
mean, I like to play. I like to play in the different facets of identity and reality. I think that's very true. But yeah, for sure. I love that. We like, yeah, in different dynamics, we bring out different things. And I know I can go to Danny and be like, Danny, I'm gay and also gender fluid. And I know that means absolutely nothing in relation to us. There's no like, that's not a statement of I'm never going to be, you know, sexually intimate with you again. That's not what it means at all. And I love that is yeah, it's a thing in our circles that you can be totally one thing and then completely something else.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good place to end it. Is there anything else you wanted to share or speak to?
Yeah, I wanna say the word family.
Yeah.
Because that's like it's a word that vibrates to Victoria and I a lot. That it's like, even throughout all of our journey of being like this husband wife style energy, and being more separate or living separate from each other, being more like best friendy energy. It's like this undercurrent of family that we're committed to, that's always there. And I feel like that's you and I as well, Catherine. That like, it doesn't matter what you tell me that you are, and it doesn't matter what I tell you that I am. It doesn't matter whether we explore with each other sexually again. It's like this undercurrent of family means so much to me, because it's what I want to cultivate in my life. That it's like, oh, yeah, there's boxes the relationship smorgasbord has 16 boxes on it, including sex, friendship, emotional intimacy, emotional support, kink. Like there's a bunch on there, and like picking and choosing from them, like what is in our dynamic, what's in the dynamic between Catherine and I right now. Friendship's a deep one. Emotional intimacy is a deep one. Emotional support's a deep one. It's like we've been sexual with each other. Yeah, cool. That's still potentially in the space. Doesn't really matter. Cool. Like right now we're very separate, 1,000 k's away from each other. So it's like, what can we be an expression of? Friendship and emotional ones. That's a great lovership right there already. The word family isn't on there, but I'm wanting to bring it in because it's something that I highly, highly value in my life. That that on a primal level, on that sacral level, if we're going to talk energy centers, I'm always going to be connected to the family where I came from. On the heart level, these golden threads that connect me to you, Catherine, it's like you're the family I choose. Cool. And I love that. And I love that I get to cultivate that for me. So my question to anyone listening is, who is the family you choose? Where are the golden threads attached to? And do you need to put more energy into those golden threads? Have you been neglecting any of them? Or have those people in your family been neglecting you?
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. So if someone wanted to find you and your work, Danny, how could they find you?
Danny Redbard is my name. Like beard, like red beard, but without the E, bard as in storyteller, teller of truths, singer of songs. Yeah. That's my name on Instagram, and you can find me on that's the best place to find me and message me. But I've got a website, I've got all the things. I've got some big things coming in group containers, in clearing emotional blocks and getting into balance in our masculine and feminine, and clearing all the energy centers and all the dogma and all the ancestral lineage emotions are a big thing that I clear, because I feel like a lot of my blocks came down the line. This was around money, around business, around a bunch of things. I could go into it, but we'll wrap it up there. Look me up, reach out.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the interview series today. It's always a pleasure. You know, I love to talk to you, and I'm really excited for those listening, all the nuggets they're going to get from this conversation. Really valuable. Thanks, Danny.